wondered how many incredible, wild, and absolutely gorgeous muscle cars from the 70s were unfairly forgotten? Models born with power, style, and the pure DNA of classic muscle cars, but for some reason, the world chose to ignore them. Today, I'm taking you on a journey to discover true hidden gems, cars that deserved a place in the Automotive Hall of Fame, but were buried under the weight of more famous names. If you love classic cars, automotive rarities, speed, history, and machines with soul, this video is for you. So hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, because together we're building a living museum of true automotive history. Get ready, because what you're about to discover will absolutely blow your mind. Let's go. 1971. Pontiac Ventura Sprint picture, the early 70s. The streets echoed with V8 engines. Young drivers dreamed of burning rubber, and car brands fought tooth and nail to build the fastest, loudest, and most desirable machine of the decade. And right in the middle of giants like the GTO and the Firebird appeared an unexpected guest, the Ventura Sprint. And yeah, I know you've probably never even heard of it, and I don't blame you. This car is like that friend who's always in the group photos, but no one remembers his name. But trust me, once you get to know it, you're going to want it in your dream garage. The Ventura Sprint was created as a more accessible option within the Pontiac family, but without losing that rebellious, muscular spirit that defined the brand. And honestly, it's a visual delight. Compact body, clean lines, an aggressive front end, and just the right touch of subtle sportiness. Under the hood, things get even more interesting. The Ventura Sprint could be equipped with a 350 cubic inch V8, producing a respectable 175 horsepower and plenty of torque. More than enough to put a smile on any enthusiast's face. But hold up, there were also versions with even wilder engines, like the 400 V8, pushing over 250 horsepower, turning this modest sedan into a genuine asphalt eater. Its top speed was around 118 miles per hour, which wasn't bad at all for a car considered the entry point of the muscle family. But here's where it gets interesting. Did you know this car shared the same platform as the Chevrolet Nova? That's right. In fact, a lot of enthusiasts call it the Nova in a Pontiac suit. A fun comparison, but honestly, a bit unfair, because the Ventura Sprint had its own personality, unique details, more refined finishes, and that unmistakable Pontiac DNA that gave it a look and vibe that was both elegant and aggressive. And if you're wondering, why have I never heard of it? The answer is simple and kind of sad. The Ventura always lived in the shadow of its bigger siblings like the Firebird and GTO, which grabbed all the attention in magazine covers. Add to that the fact that the Sprint versions were relatively rare within the total production. It's estimated that in 1971, around 45,000 units of the Ventura were built, but the Sprint variant with the sportiest package is so rare today, it's practically a unicorn. And get ready, because this fact will blow your mind. If you're lucky enough to find one in good condition today, its price usually ranges between $22,000 and $30,000, depending on how well it's preserved. 1970, Mercury Cyclone spoiler. Get ready, because what you're about to discover isn't just another forgotten muscle car. What I'm about to tell you is the story of a missile on wheels, a machine born for the racetrack, but condemned to obscurity on the streets. Picture this. Late 1960s America, the nation is absolutely obsessed with NASCAR racing. Brands are battling not just for dominance on the track, but also in the showrooms. Because, by rule, if you wanted to race in NASCAR, you had to sell homologated street versions of those race cars to the public, and that's where this storm-named monster shows up, the Cyclone spoiler. Just looking at this car was intimidating. Long, wide, low, with a razor-sharp front end designed to slice through the air like a hot knife through butter. Its blacked-out grille, hidden headlights, and aggressive lines gave it a presence that didn't ask for permission. It demanded respect. But the real savagery lived under the hood. The 1970 Mercury Cyclone spoiler came stock with a brutal 429 Super Cobra Jet V8, cranking out a terrifying 375 horsepower and torque that could probably pull a house off its foundation. It could do 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 6 seconds and had a top speed of over 130 miles per hour. Absolutely monstrous numbers for the time. And here's a fact that will blow your mind. This wasn't just a street muscle car. This was a car engineered from day one to crush rivals in NASCAR. It came standard with a heavy-duty rear differential forged steel crankshaft, special pistons, and even a racing-grade oil cooler. This wasn't a car pretending to be sporty. It was a literal race car made street legal. However, and here's the tough part, the Mercury Cyclone spoiler never managed to step out of the shadow of its more popular cousins, the Ford Torino Talladega and the Ford Fairlane. Even though they were practically siblings under the skin, the Mercury badge simply never carried the same emotional or commercial weight as Ford. And that doomed the Cyclone to become a hidden gem that very few people appreciated back then. And if you're wondering how many were made, listen to this. In 1970, Mercury produced just 1,631 units of the Cyclone spoiler. That's right, less than 2,000. An absolute rarity. Finding one today in original condition is harder than winning the lottery twice in the same day. Its current value ranges between $70,000 and $90,000, depending on condition. But honestly, its real worth is priceless to lovers of forgotten muscle. And here's a detail that almost no one knows, and I'm telling you right here. The Cyclone spoiler's aerodynamic package was so effective that some NASCAR drivers said it was actually more stable and faster in corners than the legendary Dodge Charger Daytona, which means this car, while ignored by many, was an absolute untamable beast on the track. 1970 Plymouth Road Runner Superbird. The moment you lay eyes on this car, you know it's not normal. That insanely long, knife-sharp nose designed to slice through the air, and that massive rear wing, my God, that wing looks like it was ripped straight off an airplane rather than a car. It's impossible to ignore. But let me tell you, this wasn't just about looks. Everything on this car had a purpose. The story begins with a war, a NASCAR war. In the late 1960s, Dodge had unleashed the Charger Daytona, an aerodynamic missile that was dominating the racetracks. Plymouth, part of the same Chrysler family, wasn't about to sit back and watch. And so, the Superbird was born. Its mission was simple: win in NASCAR, no matter the cost. And oh, did it deliver! Under the hood, the Superbird came with 3 engine options, but the most savage was the legendary 426 HEMI V8, delivering a brutal 425 horsepower. That was enough to push it beyond 150 miles per hour, a literal missile on wheels for its time. There were also versions with the 440 Super Commando 6-barrel, producing 390 horsepower, which was no slouch either. What's truly impressive is that this car wasn't designed with customers in mind. It was built for NASCAR engineers. The stretched nose drastically reduced aerodynamic drag, while the towering rear wing, so tall it cleared the roofline, generated insane downforce, keeping the car glued to the track at high speeds. But here comes the surreal part of the story. To be allowed to race in NASCAR, Plymouth had to sell a minimum number of these to the public, and it was a disaster. Customers walked into dealerships, saw that gigantic wing, that absurdly long nose, and walked right back out. Most were thinking, what the heck is this? It was just too much, too extreme, too weird for the street. Only about 1,920 units of the Superbird were produced in 1970, and while it was a commercial flop back then, today it's one of the most valuable and sought-after muscle cars on the planet. A pristine, Hemi-equipped Superbird can easily fetch over $500,000 today, and here's a fact that will absolutely blow your mind. The Superbird was created specifically to lure back a driver who had left Plymouth, none other than Richard Petty, the king of NASCAR. And yes, it worked. Petty came back, and the Superbird dominated the tracks like a true predator. And now, I've got a question for you, one that's going to stick in your head. If you could travel back in time, standing in front of a 1970 dealership, staring at this Superbird with that monstrous wing, that insane nose, and hearing that wild roar, would you buy it? Or even better, do you think that today, in a world where every car looks the same, a muscle car like this would be loved or still rejected for being too much? Let me know in the comments below. 1971 Dodge Demon 340. Yeah, just hearing the name Demon stirred controversy. Imagine that in the conservative American society of the early 1970s. Church groups, parent associations, and religious organizations protested and pressured Dodge to drop the name. And let me tell you, that was only the beginning of this mischievous-looking beast. Unlike the giant, heavy muscle cars of the era, the Demon 340 was built to be compact, lightweight, and ferocious. And trust me, it didn't need some monstrous V8 to put bigger cars in check. Under the hood was a 340 cubic inch V8, officially rated at 275 horsepower. But here's the kicker. Even the factory admitted that was underrated. In reality, it was pushing closer to 310 horsepower, which was absolutely brutal for a car this size and weight. Tipping the scales at just 3,000 pounds, that meant every pony hit hard. Really hard. The result? 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 5.8 seconds, with a top speed flirting around 130 miles per hour. A true compact missile that often embarrassed larger, supposedly more powerful muscle cars on the street. Visually, it was a showstopper. Compact body, sharp grille, functional hood scoops, fat wheels, and of course, that infamous badge, a grinning little demon holding a trident. A total provocation that sparked debate wherever it went. In 1971, Dodge produced about 10,098 units of the Demon 340, making it a relatively rare gem today. And if you're wondering what it's worth now, get ready. A Demon 340 in excellent condition can easily fetch $60,000 to $75,000, while fully restored or collector-grade examples have crossed the $100,000 mark. And here's a fun fact that very few people know. After the massive backlash over the Demon name, Dodge scrapped it in 1973, renaming the car the Dart Sport. But of course, by then it was too late. The Demon legend was already written into history, with its aura of rebellion forever sealed. 1970, Oldsmobile Rally 350, a muscle car that broke the rules, shattered stereotypes, and set out to prove that you didn't need to be the most powerful to be the most special. Meet the unmistakable, bright, and almost secret weapon, the Rally 350. All it takes is one look to know this car wasn't like the others. Painted in Sebring yellow with matte black accents and no chrome trim, it stood out like a ray of sunshine in a sea of dark, menacing muscle cars, bold, fresh, different, and absolutely unmistakable. But here's something very few people know. This car was born as a smart response to a problem that was starting to worry the entire industry. Insurance. Yep. In 1970, insurance companies began jacking up premiums on high-performance cars, scaring away many young buyers who dreamed of owning a muscle car but couldn't afford the sky-high insurance costs of a 442 GTO or a Charger. So what did Oldsmobile do? They created a muscle car that looked just as aggressive, just as imposing, but with an engine that made it more affordable, both in price and in insurance. That's how the Rally 350 was born. Under the hood was a 350 cubic inch V8, producing a very respectable 310 horsepower and 360 pound-feet of torque. It wasn't the most powerful on the block, but trust me, it was no slouch either. Top speed was around 118 miles per hour, and it could do 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7 seconds. Not bad at all for its time and category. But here's where it gets interesting and a bit sad. Despite its spectacular looks and smart concept, the Rally 350 was a commercial failure. Why? Because the muscle car market in 1970 was still obsessed with big numbers. 400, 455, 426 cubic inch monsters. People looked at the Rally 350 and thought, beautiful, but not a real muscle car. Huge mistake. Exactly 3,547 units were built, which today makes it a true collector's gem. A car so rare that even at major muscle car events, spotting one is like finding a four-leaf clover. And listen closely. If you manage to find one today, depending on its condition, you can expect to pay between $45,000 and $65,000. 1974 Chevrolet Laguna S3. Picture the scene. It's the early 1970s. NASCAR is tightening the rules. The wild-winged cars with absurdly long noses, like the Superbird and the Daytona, are being banned. It's the end of the most extreme aerodynamic era, but not the end of the hunt for speed. Chevrolet, refusing to be left out of the game, needed a new aerodynamic assassin disguised as a street car. Enter the Laguna S3. Even its looks give you clear clues about its DNA. Up front, a smaller grille, integrated headlights, and most importantly, a rounded urethane nose, not just for style. That shape was specifically designed to improve airflow on high-speed tracks. This was, quite literally, a race car homologated for the streets. Under the hood, it didn't disappoint either. The Laguna S3 came with several engine options, but the crown jewel was the mighty 454 cubic inch V8, producing 270 horsepower, a number that might seem modest today. But don't be fooled. This beast delivered massive torque, over 390 pound-feet, enough to move its 4,000-pound frame with surprising ease. Its top speed hovered around 120 to 124 miles per hour depending on gearing and setup. It wasn't the fastest off the line, but that wasn't the point. This car was built for endurance, to stay fast lap after lap, cutting through the air while others struggled with aerodynamic drag. Now, here comes the sad and funny part. While the Laguna Type S3 was an absolute weapon in NASCAR, winning races and becoming a favorite for top teams between 1974 and 1976 on the civilian market, it was mostly ignored. Why? Because it didn't fit the aggressive, boxy, macho aesthetic muscle car buyers loved. People saw it and thought, looks like Grandma's car with fat tires. Big mistake. In 1974, about 15,800 units of the Laguna S3 were produced, making it a rare gem in the Chevrolet world today. And get this, time has treated it with poetic justice. What was once dismissed is now being sought after by collectors who understand that the real value lies in the stories few people know. Today, its price ranges between $30,000 and $50,000 depending on condition. But the trend is clear. Its value keeps rising as more people uncover its key role in NASCAR history. 1970 Plymouth Duster 340, picture the scene. It's the late 1960s. Muscle cars are getting bigger, heavier, and of course, more expensive. And that's when Plymouth decided to play a different game. Why not give people a compact, lightweight car with the heart of a muscle car and an affordable price? That's how the Duster 340 was born, a true street missile. Its looks, deceptively simple. In fact, that was part of the trick. This wasn't a car that screamed danger like a Charger Roadrunner or Super Bee. The Duster played the surprise card. Clean lines, a fastback body, simple grille, but the proportions? Enough to make you suspicious that something was lurking underneath. And oh, was it lurking? Under the hood was the famous 340 cubic inch V8, officially rated at 275 horsepower. But in reality, it was pushing close to 310 horsepower. And here's the kicker. The car weighed just 3,000 pounds. The result? A legit pocket rocket. The numbers don't lie. 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 5.9 seconds. Top speed, near 130 miles per hour, and a quarter mile in 14.2 seconds. To give you perspective, that was enough to humiliate a lot of Chevelle SS, 396, Torino GTs, and even some more expensive and supposedly more powerful Mustangs. In 1970, about 24,817 units of the Duster 340 were produced, relatively common at the time. But as the years pass, finding one in original, well-preserved condition is getting harder and harder. Today, its value ranges between the $50,000 and $70,000, depending on condition. And like every compact muscle car of the era, prices are only climbing. And here's a mind-blowing fact. The Duster 340 was one of the first muscle cars to receive a factory-upgraded suspension package called the heavy-duty suspension. It made this car not just fast in a straight line, but surprisingly agile in the corners. But here's the most ironic part. The Duster 340 was ignored, underrated, and overshadowed for decades, simply because it wasn't as big, flashy, or expensive as its bigger Chrysler brothers. But the ones who knew, the real gearheads, looked at a Duster 340 with a knowing grin, fully aware that this car was actually the silent assassin of the muscle car world. 1976 Pontiac Le Mans GT. Imagine what it's like growing up in a family where your older brother is a superstar, a myth, a living legend. That's exactly how the Le Mans GT lived its entire life, watching all the spotlight, magazine covers, and applause go to its big brother, the GTO. But what very few people realize is the Le Mans had more than enough firepower to hold its own. Visually, it's a muscle car that combines boldness with elegance, rounded lines, an aggressive twin grille, functional hood scoops, and a profile that, while slightly more restrained than the early 70s muscle era, still screams power and presence. It's the kind of car that, when you see it parked, you just know something serious is lurking under that hood, and you'd be right. The 1976 Le Mans GT offered several engine options, but the one that put a permanent grin on your face was the 400 cubic inch V8, producing 200 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque. There was also an even wilder option, the 455 V8, pumping out up to 250 horsepower. Sure, those numbers might seem modest today, but remember, this was the mid-70s, when emission regulations and the oil crisis were hammering the entire muscle car industry. At 3,750 pounds, the Le Mans GT was surprisingly nimble for its size, with a top speed near 118 miles per hour and 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7.5 seconds. Pretty respectable for the mid-70s. And here's the craziest part. This car was, in reality, an undercover GTO. The platform was almost identical. Engine options were nearly the same, and the drivetrain shared most of its components. But for some reason, whether it was the weight of the GTO name, nostalgia, or pure marketing, the Le Mans GT never got the love it truly deserved. In 1976, just over 15,000 units of the Le Mans GT with the sport package were built, making it a rare gem in the Pontiac world today. And check this out. Its current auction price ranges between $30,000 and $45,000, while pristine examples equipped with the 455 V8 have crossed $60,000. And here's a fact that will blow your mind. In 1976, the Le Mans GT was one of the last muscle cars of the golden era to offer a true high-performance package before Pontiac officially retired the GTO name altogether. This car is, quite literally, the last breath of true Pontiac muscle before regulations killed an entire era. 1975, Dodge Charger SE. Picture this. The world was changing. The oil crisis, emissions regulations, and social pressure were slowly choking out the golden era of muscle cars. The giants were beginning to fall, but Dodge wasn't going down without a fight. And while the 1975 Charger was no longer the brutal, purebred sports monster of the late 60s, it still had plenty of fight left. The Charger SE Special Edition embraced a more luxurious, comfortable approach, but don't let the looks fool you. Under that sleeker, more refined body, still beat the heart of a real muscle car. Its presence was commanding, a split grille, smoother yet still muscular lines and chrome accents that made it look like an elegant shark, but one that was still ready to attack. And the moment you popped the hood, that grin appeared. The 1975 SE offered several engine options, but the one that truly made the ground shake was the mighty 440 Magnum 5.8, 7.2 liters of fury, producing 275 net horsepower and 370 pound-feet. Despite tightening regulations, this engine could still haul its 4,200 pounds with surprising ease. Top speed exceeded 118 miles per hour, and 0 to 60 miles per hour came in around 7.4 seconds. Sure, it wasn't as explosive as the 1969 Charger RT, nor as aggressively styled. But let me tell you something very few people know. The Charger SE was actually one of the last full-size muscle cars to offer a true big block engine in the latter half of the 70s. A living relic of an era that was fading fast. And here's the curious part. While its big brothers, the Super B and the RT, were either forgotten or discontinued, the Charger SE survived. But it came at a price. It had to give up some of its pure sporty identity to become more of a luxury muscle car. And back then, not everyone was happy about that. People looked at it and thought, it's not the same Charger anymore. And while they were right, they were also wrong, because the SE had its own soul, its own identity. Today, its value sits between $25,000 and $40,000, but like every forgotten muscle car, its price keeps climbing year after year. And listen to this, because it will absolutely blow your mind. The 1975 Charger SE was the last Charger you could buy with the factory 440 Magnum engine. After that year, it was over, the end of an era. And now, I have a question for you. But fair warning, this isn't just any question. It's one of those that makes you look inside yourself, to remember, to feel. If you could choose, would you be the kind of person who sticks with the wildest era of the Charger when it was pure rage and muscle? Or are you someone who knows how to appreciate this final version, more elegant, more refined, but still with a 440 cubic inch heart beating under the hood? What weighs more for you? Aggressive styling? Or the history, the soul, the essence of a car that refused to give up? Tell me in the comments below, because I want to know. 1972. Mercury Montego GT, picture the scene. In the early 70s, Ford's muscle car lineup was dominated by giants. Mustang, Torino, Fairlane, all of them carried presence, history, and legend. And quietly, in the corner, under the Mercury badge, sat this underdog muscle car, almost screaming to the world, "Hey, I'm here, look at me!" But no one did. Visually, the Montego GT was a beautiful car. Its lines were muscular yet refined. Up front, it had an imposing split grille flanked by quad headlights, while the rear sloped down with a subtle curve, giving it an elegant, almost European vibe, but without losing that pure American soul. This was a muscle car dressed in a tuxedo, and under the hood, things got very, very serious. The 1972 Montego GT offered several engine options, but the absolute crown jewel was the 429 Cobra Jet V8, 7.0 liters of brute force, delivering 205 net horsepower and a monstrous 345 pound-feet of torque. This car could hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 7.6 seconds, with a top speed close to 118 miles per hour. But beyond the numbers, what really shocked people was how effortlessly it could switch from being a loud, aggressive muscle car to a smooth, elegant highway cruiser. And you know what the most painful part of this story is? The Montego GT, in many ways, was superior in build quality, refinement, and comfort to a lot of its rivals. But its problem was the badge on the hood. Mercury never carried the same emotional weight as Ford, Chevy, or Dodge in the muscle car world. And because of that, this car was systematically overlooked. In 1972, just over 9,100 units of the Montego GT with a V8 were produced, making it an absolute rarity today. Its current market value, still well below what it truly deserves, ranges between $28,000 and $40,000, though the best preserved examples are slowly climbing in value at international auctions. And there you have it, 10 forgotten muscle cars from the 1970s that, without a doubt, deserved far more recognition, respect, and a place in history. Now, I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, which one of these muscle cars surprised you the most? Which one would you take home to your dream garage? Or do you know of another forgotten model that should have made this list? Your opinion matters, because this isn't just about looking at cars. This is a community of people who live and breathe the passion for automotive history. Don't leave without dropping your comment. And if you're still hungry for more, I invite you to check out the video where we explore the most forgotten and unfairly overlooked muscle cars of the 1960s. A true masterpiece of automotive history that, trust me, will absolutely fascinate you. I'll see you there in the next story that deserves to be told.